Welcome back to the deep dive. We've got a stack of research on the table today that is going to be, well, let's just say it might be a little triggering for anyone who has ever had their heart completely put through a blender.
That is a very vivid and honestly a very accurate way to put it. We're wading into some turbulent waters today.
We are. We're talking about the twin flame phenomenon. Now, before half our listeners roll their eyes and the other half grab their tarot cards, just pause, because we aren't doing the usual past lives and star charts thing today.
Not at all. And look, if that's your framework, that's totally fine. But our mission for this deep dive is to strip away the mysticism and just look at the mechanics. We're looking at a text that analyzes deep attachment through the lens of, well, psychology and neurology.
We want to know why it happens. Why do rational, grounded people suddenly feel like they're losing their minds over someone? I mean, we're talking about that sensation where you swear you can feel the other person even if they're 1,000 miles away.
Right.
Is it telepathy? Is it magic? Or is it something your brain is doing?
The source material calls it internal resonance. And frankly, understanding this concept is the difference between feeling like you're the star of a cosmic romance and, feeling like you need a medical intervention.
It's a fine line.
Wow.
So let's set the stage. We are moving from the idea of mind-to-mind transmission, like some kind of psychic walkie-talkie,
Yeah. Yes,
to understanding how the brain encodes a bond. And the source makes a pretty bold claim right up front about supernatural explanations.
It does. It explicitly states that communication associated with a twin flame connection.
Yeah.
Well, it does not require a supernatural explanation to be meaningful. That's the anchor for today. We aren't here to debunk the feeling. The feeling is real.
The feeling is very real.
We're here to decode the source of the signal.
Okay, so let's talk about that signal, because I think anyone who has been in this dynamic knows the phantom phone call. You're washing dishes, driving to work, just doing your taxes, and suddenly, bam, it hits you.
It's visceral. It hits the body before it even hits the mind.
Exactly. It's not just, oh, I remember them. It feels like an interaction. It feels like they just walked into the room. Why? Why does the brain do that? If they aren't there, why does it feel so much like they are?
To understand that, we have to look at how the brain actually stores relationships. The source explains that the human brain isn't just a filing cabinet where you store memories like old photos.
Yeah.
It's a neural network generator.
Okay, break that down for us. What does that mean for a relationship?
So when you form a bond with someone, especially one that involves high recognition, extreme emotional intensity, and vulnerability, you are literally wiring that person into your neural structure. You create an imprint.
So they aren't just a memory. They become, what, a part of the operating system?
Exactly. Think of it like a computer simulation. Your brain is a prediction machine. Its job, all day long, is to predict what happens next so you can survive. And when you are deeply entangled with someone, your brain builds this highly sophisticated model of them.
A model.
Yeah, it knows how they react, how they smell, how they speak, how they feel.
So when I feel them reaching out, that's actually my brain just running the simulation.
Yes, the program is running the background. The source calls this internal resonance. Even if the server, the actual person, is offline or miles away, the software is still installed on your hard drive. And because it's a high bandwidth program, when it sends a notification, it feels external.
That is simpler, but also kind of haunting. It's like a ghost in the machine.
It is a ghost in the machine. And the source highlights why it feels so convincingly telepathic. I mean, there are specific qualities to these bots that trick us.
Like the spontaneity. I feel like that's what always trips people up. I wasn't even thinking about him.
Right. You aren't sitting there trying to conjure them up. If you were sitting there thinking, I wonder what Dave is doing, that feels like a thought you generated. But internal resonance just pops in without permission.
It bypasses the conscious filter.
Totally. And it has a texture, doesn't it? The source mentions it carries an emotional tone rather than a verbal structure.
That's a key distinction. It's rarely a specific sentence like, I am buying milk.
Right.
It's a wash of emotion. It's a sensation of presence. And because it feels so distinct from your normal narrating voice, the immediate assumption is, this is foreign. This is coming from outside.
But the source argues, this does not mean another consciousness is speaking.
It means the bond has been internally encoded.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's the texture of that person, simulated by your own neural pathways.
I want to push on this a bit, though, because, I've had plenty of exes. I've had breakups where I was sad, sure. But once it was done, the program was uninstalled, deleted, recycle bin emptied. Why does this specific dynamic, this twin flame thing, stick so hard? Why doesn't this program get deleted?
That is the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And the source material is very specific about the triggers. It's not random. You don't get this resonance with the guy you dated for 3 weeks who bored you to tears.
No, definitely not.
It happens most strongly when three things align. First, the relationship was emotionally intense. High highs, low lows.
Right.
Second, it involved mirroring or identity reflection. You saw yourself in them in a profound way.
And the third?
Unresolved attachment. The relationship ended without resolution.
Ah, the open loop.
The Zeigarnik effect on steroids. The brain hates open loops. It cannot stand a puzzle that hasn't been solved. So if there was a sudden break, ghosting, or just a messy ending where nothing was integrated, the brain just keeps the network active. It's trying to solve the problem in the background.
So the telepathy is basically your brain refusing to clock out because the job isn't done.
That is a great way to put it. The source emphasizes that the mind continues the dialogue internally because the external dialogue was cut short.
That actually explains the whole runner-chaser dynamic people talk about in these circles. One person leaves and the other person's brain just goes into overdrive trying to bridge that gap.
And neurologically, distance doesn't mean disconnection. The source is explicit here. Silence does not mean disconnection. Distance does not mean abandonment, at least not to your neurons. You are mapped.
Being mapped, it sounds almost sci-fi. But it's validating, isn't it?
It is.
It means you aren't crazy, you're not imagining things, you are experiencing a biological reality of deep attachment.
You are experiencing a physiological state. But, and this is the big pivot in our deep dive today, just because the feeling is real doesn't mean your interpretation of it is correct.
Right. Just because I feel them thinking of me doesn't mean they are actually sitting in a cafe pining away.
They might be eating a sandwich.
They might be eating a sandwich and not thinking about me at all. And that is where people get into trouble. That's where the suffering comes from.
Exactly. So if we accept that this is an internal simulation, we have to learn how to distinguish between a healthy resonance,
Yeah.
a useful insight, and just spiraling attachment-driven anxiety.
This was my favorite part of the reading, the litmus test. Because, let's be honest, sometimes you feel a connection and it's beautiful. Other times you feel a connection and you're checking their Instagram stories every 45 seconds and you feel like you're going to throw up.
Those are two very different neurological states, and the source gives us a checklist to tell them apart.
Okay, let's start with the good stuff. What does true, healthy internal resonance look like?
It's characterized by calm. That is the baseline. It's steady, non-directive, and grounding.
Non-directive. What do you mean by that?
It doesn't boss you around. It doesn't scream at you, call them now. True resonance is a feeling of knowing that actually settles you. It encourages self-clarity. It respects your autonomy.
So if I'm driving and I get this sudden warm feeling of, oh, I hope they're doing okay, and I feel peaceful and just keep driving, that's resonance.
Yes, it feels like presence, not pressure. It remains consistent over time. It doesn't fluctuate wildly based on whether they liked your post or not.
Okay, now let's contrast that with the bad stuff. The anxiety masquerading as intuition, the false twin signal, if you will.
The number one flag is urgency.
Urgency.
I have to do something now. Attachment-driven fantasy feels like an emergency. I have to call them. I have to explain myself. I have to check if they're online. It feels intrusive and chaotic.
It's that dopamine hit-seeking, right?
Exactly. It's addiction mechanics. And the source notes that this state requires constant interpretation. You become a detective of the invisible.
Oh, God, the decoding. They posted a picture of a coffee cup. We had coffee once in 2019. This is clearly a message to me.
We laugh, but the brain is incredibly good at pattern matching when it's desperate. But that confusion, that need to decode, that is a hallmark of anxiety, not resonance. True connection doesn't need a decoder ring.
Wow. That's a heavy hit. True connection doesn't need a decoder ring. So if you're spending 4 hours analyzing a Spotify playlist they made,
That's not intuition.
that's a trauma response.
It is. It leads to obsession and avoidance of real life. You stop living your day because you're living in the sign.
So true connection makes you feel more settled. Anxiety connection makes you feel manic. But in the moment, it's hard to tell, isn't it? When you're in the thick of it, the anxiety feels like intuition. It feels like, I just know I need to reach out.
Which is why the source offers a practical tool, a circuit breaker. We can call it the interrupt test.
I tried this out on a different stressor yesterday, and it's surprisingly effective. Walk us through it.
It's very simple. When the feeling hits you, that wave of connection or urgency, can you interrupt it?
Meaning, can I distract myself?
Can you shift your focus to a complex task? If you force yourself to focus on a spreadsheet or a difficult video game or a conversation with a friend, what happens to the feeling?
If it's anxiety, it probably fades, right? Because I've cut the fuel line to the loop.
Exactly. If you can distract yourself out of the connection, it was likely a projection. It was an internal loop generated by your own brain. The source says, external signals do not fade with a focus shift, but internal projections do.
That is such a powerful reality check. Because if it's a cosmic bond, it shouldn't be so fragile that doing Sudoku wipes it out.
Precisely. If it's real deep resonance, it will still be there in the background, quiet and steady, after you finish your work. It doesn't demand your attention to exist.
I feel like that test alone could save people months of spiraling.
It returns agency to the listener. And that leads us to the most important reframe in the entire text. We spend so much time asking, is this them? Are they thinking of me?
We externalize everything. We give them all the power.
The expert advice here is to stop asking, is this them? And start asking, what does this produce in me?
Oof. That puts the responsibility right back in your lap.
It does. It moves the focus from mind-to-mind transmission to self-inquiry. The source discusses the difference between projection and empathy, which is a very, very subtle distinction.
I know they're sad right now.
Do you?
Yeah.
Are you sad? And your brain is painting that sadness onto the avatar of them that lives in your head.
Empathy imagines, projection assumes.
That's the line. Clarity returns when interpretation stops. The goal of these experiences, even the really intense ones, isn't to give you a play-by-play of your ex's emotional state.
Yeah.
They aren't instructions. They are insights into your own emotional state.
So the voice of the twin flame is actually just a mirror.
It's a mirror. It's showing you the parts of yourself that are still hurting or longing or needing attention.
That's a hard pill to swallow because it's so much more romantic to think our souls are chatting in the ether. It's much less romantic to think my amygdala is showing me my abandonment issues.
It is less romantic, but it is so much more empowering. If the experience encourages you to wait, to stop living, or to suspend your judgment, the source is very clear. That is not a healthy signal. That is not a spiritual truth. That is a wound.
If it encourages you to stop living, it is not a healthy signal. I feel like someone listening right now really needed to hear that specific sentence.
It's vital. Because healthy resonance, the real deal, leads towards self-integration. It leads to emotional regulation. It makes you a better, more functional human being.
It adds to your life. It doesn't subtract from it.
Exactly. Unhealthy interpretation leads to a loss of agency. You become puppet to these invisible signals. You're waiting by the phone for a call that isn't coming, all because a certain song came on the radio.
So the goal isn't union with the other person, necessarily. The goal is integration of the self.
That is the core message. The source says, a true twin flame type bond does not pull you out of your body, it brings you back into it. The purpose is not contact, it is coherence.
Coherence, I love that word. It implies that all the scattered parts of you are coming together.
When clarity increases, trust increases. When confusion increases, pause is required. That's the rule of thumb.
It's interesting because in the spiritual community, union is always the holy grail. When will we be together? But this psychological approach says, no, the union that matters is the one happening inside your own head.
And ironically, the more integrated you are, the better your relationships actually become, whether it's with that person or someone else entirely.
Because you aren't using the other person to plug a hole in your psyche anymore.
You aren't asking them to resolve your internal loops. You've resolved them yourself.
So let's bring this home for the listener. We've talked about the brain wiring, the neural networks. We've talked about the difference between the calm knowing and the frantic guessing. We've talked about integration. If someone is listening to this and thinking, okay, I have this voice in my head, I have this feeling, what is the ultimate measure of whether it's a good thing?
The source sums it up beautifully. The strongest sign that the connection is being integrated correctly is not messages, signs, or supernatural sensations. It is this. You become more present, more whole, and more capable of living your life.
That's it. That's the metric.
That is the signal that matters. Not, did I guess the color of their shirt today, but am I more capable of living my own life today?
It's almost paradoxically simple. The more connected you are in a healthy way, the more independent you actually become.
Because a true bond doesn't create a deficit. It creates a surplus. It adds to your stability. It doesn't subtract from it. If you find yourself disappearing into the ether, chasing a ghost, that's not the bond. That's the wound.
That's not the bond, that's the wound. That is a distinction I'm going to be thinking about for a long time.
And remember, The source material emphasizes that internal experiences can be deeply instructive. We aren't saying to ignore them. We aren't saying to repress them.
Right, don't just bottle it up.
No. Listen to it. Feel it. But treat it as information about yourself, not instructions from another person.
Don't pick up the phone. Look at the data.
Exactly. What matters is how you respond.
This has been such a refreshing take on this topic. It's so easy to get lost in the magic of it all, but there is something really grounding about understanding the biology of it. It takes the scary out of it.
It restores agency. And that is what we always want. We want to be the drivers of our own experience, not the passengers.
Absolutely. Well, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought to mull over. We've talked about how these ghosts in our neural networks can trigger anxiety or integration, but think about this. If the purpose of the bond isn't contact but coherence, how might your ghosts actually be trying to help you become more you?
That's the question.
Instead of asking why they're haunting you, maybe ask what part of you they're trying to wake up. Maybe the ghost isn't an intruder. Maybe it's a teacher you hired a long time ago.
Beautifully put.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. Take care of your neural networks, everyone. We'll catch you on the next one.